welcome to Lay It Out, the No Bullshit Science podcast.
With extra bullshit.
I'm Kiri.
And I'm Alice.
And she's Silent Demelza.
Ooh.
She's back!
Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. That was like speedy. That was definitely a quicker pace than we normally do it.
What, our introduction?
Yeah.
Maybe we were just so excited.
I think so.
Also,
I think you were so happy to get to the Demelza actually being here.
Yeah. But I was thinking,
I'm tanned.
as I was saying it, maybe
Bitch.
we should change it to producer Demelza now because she looks real producer.
She does look like a producer. If you want to check out producer Demelza, she's on our Instagram story. Actually, she won't be anymore because this won't be out for like 3 weeks. But I might try put it in the past stories. Should I?
Oh yeah, in the highlights.
Yeah, it'll be in the highlights.
Yeah.
She's looking super fly.
Yeah. We've decided to do things properly for once, and she's wearing headphones to check that we actually sound okay.
She looks snazzy.
She does. Alice is on her phone.
I told you I can multitask.
Can you do it in the bit where it's not just us two talking?
Fine. So how are you?
I'm good. We've seen each other a lot.
We've been spending a lot of time together.
I'm getting almost a little bit sick of you.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, because you keep shouting at me for touching you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's this thing you just started doing today, and I'm like, why are you touching me?
The first touch was a mistake. I didn't mean to touch you, and it just happened.
It's like that creepy, like just kind of gently brushing against me. It's so creepy. I can't deal. Yeah, like that.
No, but I like it when Demelza does it because it's really hard to get.
And it was your face touching my shoulder.
Like, I think it was my face touching your face.
Oh no, that's not right.
We were trying to look at something on a phone.
Yeah, and it was really small and wouldn't let us zoom, so we had to
get
enter
real
each
close.
other's personal space. Anyway, we went camping.
Yeah, that was fun.
And it rained a lot.
It did.
But it was my first camping experience, and even despite the rain, I highly enjoyed it.
It was really good.
And actually, to clarify, first non-festival camping experience.
And it's a good gang. It's a good group of people to go with because they're very inclusive.
And they're also very good at camping.
Like, inclusive in the sense that they don't make you feel like an outsider if you're not one of the group usually.
I didn't feel like an outsider. And they all had really good camping equipment. Can I just...
Oh yeah, we're all seasoned campers.
Like, we'd be doing something and then... Like, Curry would just whip out a stove and, like, start boiling water for tea. And I was like, wow. And then there was this table that folded up into, like, the size of, like, a little tablecloth. And then when it folded out, it had 4 chairs. And I was just like, what?
Although that table was very unsafe.
It was, but nobody actually sat on it.
No.
It was just for prep.
Yeah.
For food prep.
Yeah. It was good, though. I'm glad you enjoyed your first camping experience.
I did, yeah.
And you didn't get eaten by zombies.
No.
Even though
Which I was very concerned about in the first night because they made me pitch my tent a good 20 metres away from everybody else's tent.
1, that's a huge exaggeration.
It was
and
fine.
2, if you weren't, you would have literally been sleeping on a cow pat.
I know.
Exactly. It was a dairy farm. Demelza would have felt right at home.
You would have, yeah. There was so many cows.
I went to a dairy farm.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So you just went home?
No, in Italy.
She just can't get enough of them.
Do they grow cows well in Italy?
What do you mean?
No, I just would have thought it was too hot to have
Are
good cows.
Are cows really sensitive to temperature?
Well, they're good in like temperate climates. I would say it'd be too dry there for them. Like the grass and the soil wouldn't be as good, surely.
No, the grass would be great.
Mediterranean,
The
actually.
grass would be great in Italy.
Be a different type of grass though.
They'd get a lot of vitamin D.
Do cows even need vitamin D?
Maybe their steaks have loads of vitamin D.
I've never had I've never had a steak.
How can you say that you don't like beef if you've never had a really good steak?
Because I just don't like the look or the smell or the rawness. Everybody's looking at me like I'm, just come down off another planet.
This is like when you told me earlier today that you've never had a Subway before.
But now I've had a bite of yours.
Yeah, you had 2 bites of mine.
Curry had 2 disbelieving moments. Actually, now 3.
Now 3.
No, you knew about the steak.
Yeah, I knew it.
The 2 were recently. So the first one was I've never had a McDonald's breakfast.
Have you still never had one?
No.
Fucking hell.
The sausage freaks me out.
Then just don't get the sausage.
Okay.
Do you know what? Okay.
I've had a hash brown.
The next time I pick up a McDonald's breakfast in the morning when I come to work, I'll get you an egg and cheese McMuffin and a hash brown.
Egg and cheese. Oh, no.
For fuck's sake.
Oh, no.
Bacon one?
No, yeah, bacon.
Bacon and egg.
Yeah.
But it's got cheese in it as well.
Why does it have to have cheese?
The cheese is the good bit.
But it's the scary, sloppy cheese.
You had that in your burger over the weekend.
No, I didn't. I didn't have a burger.
Oh, fuck, you don't eat beef.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, this conversation's getting a bit out of hand.
This has been a really boring intro.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, should we bring on our guest?
Yeah. So we have a science guest again. So we are now definitely going to be alternating between lay guests and science guests until for the rest of the season. So we're back with a science guest, and
Woo-woo.
we have Dr. Dupree.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having
Otherwise
me.
known as Andrea. Or Andrea, if you're our supervisor, and everyone else.
It's a very divisive. It's a divisive one. How do you pronounce it?
It's Andrea, but I generally go with Andrea.
Andrea.
Andrea. Because Sandrine says Andrea because of
Andrea.
her French accent.
Andrea.
So does Demelza.
Yeah.
Andrea.
Don't worry.
I think I'm the only one that calls you Andrea.
I think Kiara calls me Andrea as well. I'm not sure. I kind of got used to it. I go by both. It's just easier.
I answer to anything.
Yeah. As long as it sounds like Andrea, I'll
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah, I respond to both Kiri and Kim.
And cutie now too.
Oh yeah. I don't mind that one so much.
Autocorrect.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah, it's not fun though when you're writing an official email and you sign it off with best wishes, cutie.
Especially with your participants, like all the old people.
Oh
They're like,
god.
oh, what?
I've had participants and interested people email me before but saying, hi cutie. And then they'll often reply like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, it's alright. It's all good.
That's adorable.
Yeah. Anyway, back to our guest.
Yes. So how do we all know each other, Carrie?
So Andrea is in my lab. We're in the same lab. We were kind of half in the same lab when I first met you, and now you're officially fully
Yep, that's right.
in the Threat lab.
I am. Kind of been around, I guess.
Just whoring around the IOPPN, you know.
Yeah, in the context of science, yes. I've been at the IOPPN. I've been at 2 different departments within this, in the wall where we're based.
Oh.
Yeah, sort of
Have
done
you
a bit of
always-
everything.
Have you always sat where you sit?
No.
Oh.
I've actually used to sit in the JBC, and now then we moved to the ground floor, and now I've moved up.
You were one of those ground floor people. We never
Yes.
talk to the ground floor people.
I've even heard you refer to the ground floor people as the ground floor people.
Because
one
I
of
don't
those
know
people.
who's on the ground floor.
Some of them have been my participants.
Not the ground floor people.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
There's some really nice ground floor people.
I'm sure there are, but they are quite.
Andrew's like, I know, I've been there.
I'm sure there are very nice ground floor people, but the ground floor is quite separate from the rest of the building.
Yeah, it's mainly clinical stuff.
Yeah.
That's why it's on the ground floor.
I see.
But they do have a phone booth down there, which I use.
Oh.
Which is also really strange, though.
Why?
It's really smelly and hot, and
It
Oh.
does
quite
get
claustrophobic.
really hot in
Yeah.
there
Why do you use it?
because it's
quiet
privacy
space. Yeah.
for when I call participants.
Ah.
Yeah.
Clever. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Oh, we could use one of them.
I know.
That's ridiculous. We don't
Fucking
have
tell
one.
me about it.
Gonna bring that up with someone.
Yeah.
I don't know who.
Well, your supervisor is head of department, so that might be a good place to start.
I mean, it's just a couple of like square.
A wall.
Yeah.
Does it have a roof?
Yeah.
I don't think it does.
No, it does.
Does it?
Yeah.
Otherwise the sound would get out.
It does because there's a light on
It doesn't sound right.
Oh, that might.
Like heat. It doesn't.
Yeah, it probably does have a roof, given that it's
No
so
sound does travel.
sweaty. It's like a
Does
sweat
it
box.
go up though?
Yeah.
Well, I
I don't think waves are stuck in a forward position.
I don't think they go up.
No, I don't
It
think
goes
they
through.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it goes through.
Wait, sound waves don't go up?
Well,
think so.
Not at a sharp angle.
I mean, I guess it depends on what
Oh.
they hit. Perhaps.
They bounce, right?
Yeah, off things.
Yeah, so they go up.
Yeah, but I don't think that they naturally just.
Well, no,
Go up.
unless you talk into the air.
Hello. Yeah, it went up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really not giving us much faith that we do science.
No, no.
We're
Most
not
of these,
physics people.
No, we're not. We are
Most
not
of-
physicists. No,
I
we are
won't lie,
not.
most of these episodes, you'd be very shocked to know that we actually do science in real life.
That's like that question that we got at the weekend when we were playing one of those games when we were camping, and it was like I got it as a question. It was in a drinking game, and it was like name as many physicists as you can, and then the amount that I could name, I was allowed to give out that many drinks, so that many people had to drink. So it was like a chance to really catch people out, and then the only one I could name was Albert Einstein. Is he even a physicist?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one I got. I don't know anymore.
Was Bell not a physicist?
You couldn't get any
I said
more
Bell.
either. Who's Bell?
Alexander Graham Bell. He's a physicist. But then people argued with me
You're
saying
agreeing.
he's an inventor, not a physicist.
And what was he?
I mean, I think
He's a physicist.
Yeah, because sound is physics, isn't
Yeah.
it? They were wrong.
I know.
Don't doubt yourself.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Alice.
Sorry, I should have.
So, let's go back to you.
Yeah.
Because you are the main guest of the show. It's not about us. The way we start with our science guests is usually, why don't you tell us about how you started in science?
I come from a bit of a unusual background, at least in the context of neuroscience. So I started off as a zoologist. I always wanted to be a zoologist.
She gets really excited when we have infections in the cell culture room.
I do. It's the microbiology aspects of my degree. I think it just stems, not the
You're like, oh, there's things growing. They're living.
Yeah, really. Yes, things are alive that aren't my cells. Yeah. I think it just stems from being in Africa. I spent a lot of time out with lots of animals, so I think I've always really wanted to do that. So yeah, I did zoology as a degree.
If you do zoology as a degree, is that do you become a zoo person? Zookeeper.
A zoological scientist.
Yes.
Oh. Is that a term?
Although, to be fair, I haven't heard the "are you studying to be a zookeeper" for a while. That brings back memories. I'm not gonna lie.
Wait, but I'm assuming a lot of zookeepers do have zoology degrees.
Some of them, but you don't need to have a zoology degree to be a zookeeper.
You could probably have a veterinary degree or something.
I mean, it makes
or maybe
sense to
no
have
degree.
Veterinary degree. Yeah.
You could be a
Most
zookeeper with no
degree.
degree. Oh,
I'm sure.
Yeah. It's mainly
like
through
an
experience, and you
apprentice.
do training and within that.
I see.
So even if you had a zoology degree, you'd still need to go through the training to be a zookeeper.
So would you be more likely to be like those scientists that write papers about?
It's basically just a field in
how
itself.
the spots on this fish do stuff.
It's like research, but for animals. So it's looking at mating, looking at behaviours, looking at... I wanted to do that. But it's difficult to get money to do something that a lot of people like to volunteer on a volunteer basis. And I think...
That makes sense.
So because of that, I really struggled to find a career within zoology. Because if I wanted to go abroad, it would be a sort of a gap year experience. People paid a lot of money to do that. So made it challenging to get a degree. So whilst trying to decide what to do with my zoology degree, I ended up taking a position looking at the sort of genetic basis of cooperative behaviour in humans and animals.
Okay.
At UCL.
What's that?
So it was just looking at cooperative behaviour in humans and how altruism, sort of game theory, how what we do is ultimately, is it altruistic, is it competitive, how do we, it's all about evolutionary theory and how we behave.
What's cooperative behaviour?
I mean, it depends on your definition. So it's when two parties would cooperate in some sort of mutually beneficial way.
So if you had, say, between, it's like service dogs and humans.
Yeah, that's sort of like, I guess. But it was more looking at it between the same species as opposed to cooperation between animals.
I see.
So it's looking at cooperation within humans.
There was no animals involved in this.
There wasn't. It was a big consortium project. It was a big consortium project that had...
Curie likes to make just assumptions.
But in truth, there was animal related, because animals, obviously, a lot of the information we get from cooperative behaviours stems from animal models. And, so it does come from that.
So what animal models do you do when you're looking at...
So crows are particularly smart.
Interesting.
They're quite a good
crows are
animal
freaky.
Model. So they tend to use a lot of crows in animal models. And then just general behaviours as well. So, and then you've got eusocial animals. So there's quite a big, in terms of evolutionary theory, of essentially sociality and cooperation. That's how it all works. And we were looking at that in the context in humans and what drives cooperative behaviour and altruism, if such a thing exists. So we were looking at that in a twin study.
So am I right in thinking that altruism is when you do things without expecting like a reward, or like it's like selfless?
Yes,
kind of.
Although many argue, and that doesn't exactly
I was just going to say, is there such thing as a selfless act?
Yes.
That's interesting.
So yeah, that's...
Having worked in that field, do you think it exists?
No, because I think whether you're consciously aware of it or not, there is some sort of benefit
Yeah.
to being altruistic in one way or another. It makes you feel good. So
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
default, it's not really truly altruistic.
Yeah.
But then I'm a pessimist, so perhaps that might be why I don't believe in altruism.
I don't think there's a such thing as a selfless act.
And is there like altruism? It's probably very hard to prove, but like, is there altruism in like other species? Species.
Yeah. Yeah, so lots of animals do altruistic acts that we see in nature all the time.
Yeah.
Like
that
salmon.
cannot be explained.
You just keep going with what you were going to say.
No.
We'll come back to this.
No, I mean, what about the salmon?
Like when they swim up the river and then basically die, but then to give birth to their children.
Okay, I guess, but that's more of a mating and sort of survival thing. They go upriver so that the spawn can come down.
Yeah, so the mother's like, I'm doing a selfless act for my babies.
I'm not sure that's...
No,
I mean,
that's like reproduction.
Yeah, and it's also that opens up a completely new branch of evolutionary theory. And that's how,
fine.
propagating your own genes.
Okay,
So it's
carry
not
on
true.
And we only have an hour.
Carry on talking. Let me think of another altruistic animal act.
I mean,
Maybe we should let Andrea give us some examples.
So there are some nice examples in the wild where, hippopotamus have been known to save, it's like impala young when they fall into lakes or
Oh my God.
into dams, and then they save them from crocodiles. So
Oh, wow.
there's lots of altruistic behaviours like that, or elephants save other animals from being eaten.
It would be like
So-
interspecies.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things like that, and I mean it's less prone. I mean, in terms of cooperation, because there's always some benefit in some way, but those are probably the most go-to examples
Yeah.
of altruism.
So
like
I was
in
going to
nature.
say, you've talked enough. We've really been spending too much time together.
That was... Do you know what I find, right?
Oh, she's off again.
The more time we spend together, she keeps talking to me like her little sister, like how she speaks to her little sister, and I'm really not
Is
appreciating.
this where this alpha thing comes from?
Perhaps.
The alpha with the complex thing comes
Yeah,
from.
maybe.
Um,
So wait, no, I was going to say something actually. So, David Attenborough's most recent series.
Dynasties.
Yeah.
That shit was so sad.
Oh. So did you watch? You didn't watch it?
No,
Okay.
because it's
So
brutal.
it is
The animal
brutal.
world is
The
brutal.
penguin episode. Oh,
So every episode.
They're
But
awful.
there was this one episode and it was on painted dogs. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
I think,
Wild
yeah.
dogs,
Yeah. And they were like kind of cute but kind of scary and had really big ears like bats, and it
I
was
love them. They're
bats
so
don't have big
beautiful.
ears, do they? Yeah.
They do
were
have big
like,
ears, yeah.
when you zoomed in on them, they were really beautiful. And their puppies were really cute, but they were kind of weird looking, and they were very screechy. But anyway, there was this bit, and it was really sad. But this is intra-species, obviously. So there was one of them, and they were all having a drink from the lake, minding their own business. And then a crocodile comes along and like snaps one of them in its jaws, and they're so skinny, and I just felt like it just snapped. But anyway, it was like still screaming and trying to get away, and then all the other dogs like ran to the edge of the river and were like trying to get it, but they knew that they were gonna die. And then David Attenborough just swings in like as if that's not enough of a tearjerker, and he's like, they're one of the only species that exhibit like a lot of distress when members die or like try and help them. Apparently that's not that common
don't
or something
elephants
that
have
they'll
that?
Yes, you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Elephants are very
Yeah.
empathetic, so they
Oh my
mourn
God.
their
Yeah,
young.
and
Yeah.
Primates,
painted dogs
primates
mourn.
do it as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so sad.
Isn't it? So I was already like on the edge, and then he just comes in with that cracker, and I was like, right, I'm gone.
Do you know what really got me? So
What?
that in the penguin episode, there's a bit where they fall down this like ravine bit, right? And they're all trying to climb up and get out, and there's a storm coming, so they have to get out. And you see some of them, and they're making it up, and they're near the top of the ravine, and then this gust of wind just like blows them down the ravine.
Or
and
they
then-
just lose their footing and like
Yeah.
slide, and they're so
trying-
streamlined.
They're trying
they just
so
slide.
hard to get out, and then so it goes overnight, and then they come back the next day, and they just show you all the dead penguin bodies that couldn't make it out of the fucking ravine.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
just there like, I think about 10 minutes into the penguin episode, I started crying and I didn't stop till the end.
Yeah, this is why I don't watch them.
It's
the
so
animal world
sad.
is incredibly brutal.
Okay, so Demel's has got some new signage, and we're not quite in the flow of just continuing. Every time she moves a sign, we all stop and stare at her. So yeah, we'll get there eventually. Yeah, so continue with what you were talking
Yeah.
about prior to our side.
So I guess in terms, where did I go from there? So yeah, after I did my cooperative behaviour thing, I actually left science for 4 years and managed restaurants.
Oh my God, very much of a U-turn.
It was mainly because when I left that position, the recession, one of the recessions hit, and it was really, really difficult, and I was an at-risk candidate.
Why?
Because I needed a PhD, and I had experience that they couldn't put me in level entry.
Oh.
So a lot of people wouldn't invest money in me. And I didn't want to do a PhD because I was not ready for a PhD.
And can I ask, was this in the UK?
It was in the UK, yes. And in London. And so then, I ended up taking a bit of a turn. I worked in restaurants for money and then was running restaurants for 3-4 years.
Any nice restaurants?
ZZ.
Oh!
Yeah, a couple of chains, Canary Wharf, The Strand.
I don't like ZZ.
Yeah, I don't like ZZ anymore either.
I actually don't think I've ever eaten there.
It's just an Italian
It's not good.
Yeah. Is it?
It's not good.
Is it really that bad?
It's not great.
Okay.
It's sort of in the middle now, although I don't know now.
Okay.
I feel like back in the
So
day...
we shouldn't ask them to sponsor us.
No.
No.
I feel like back in the day when ZZ first opened, it was one of those places that you go to because there was no other real Italian chain.
It used to be... There used to be fewer Italian chains.
Yeah.
It used to be a bit more upmarket, but I think over time there's so many of them now, and it just really depends where you go. And obviously I'm incredibly biased because I worked there. So
I'd even put it below Pizza Express.
yeah, before it used to be above, but I would agree.
Yeah. What about Vapiano?
Oh no, it's way below Vapiano.
I quite like Vapiano.
Vapiano's great.
Yeah, I like Vapiano.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happened post restaurants?
And then
Wait, hang on, question. So you know that whole time you were working in restaurants, did you keep up with the science at all?
No, I actually completely left. Yeah, I didn't keep up at all.
And you didn't miss it?
No, I didn't. Not initially, but I had a lot of fun doing it. Met a lot of people, learned a lot of skills. Managing people is very challenging, and managing restaurants with lots of people is very challenging.
Yes.
So I quite liked that, and it was so high paced. So I it was more like I needed a bit of a change because the lifestyle is quite brutal.
Yeah.
So then I decided, let's go back into science. And then did my master's in psychiatric research because I really enjoyed sort of the human elements of research that I did in the first consortium project that I worked in. So then I did my MSc in psychiatric research part-time here at the IOPPN. And whilst doing that, I also was a clinical coordinator for a perinatal project looking at stress and antenatal depression on mother and infant outcomes.
What weeks is perinatal?
From conception to probably 1 to 2 years. They keep extending that. So perinatal, it sort of encompasses both antenatal and the first year's postnatal.
I see.
And was it difficult to go from restaurants back into science? Like, was it hard to get those that first job?
Yes, I mean, it was. I mean, the first job I did, I kind of did a lot of experience. So when I did my master's, it was really to kind of build contacts so that I can get back into science. So I did a lot of clinical work. So I worked part-time at the Bethlehem on an acute female ward, which was very interesting, and I learned so much. And then I also did this project. So I learned, it was sort of like hands-on learning, and it was really interesting. There was obviously a massive psychiatry element that I really loved, and I really, really enjoyed it. And working with people in terms of a research concept was really nice. And I think the skills that I had from managing restaurants and working with lots of people kind of made that easier. In terms of the science, I don't know. I don't recall it being particularly, but then I was very kind of focused on getting it because I was paying a lot of money for the masters. So I was quite keen and quite focused. So I think that probably helped.
So what made you want to come back into science specifically rather than, say, leaving the restaurant industry and going into like a more like officey thing?
I've never really been an officey kind of a person. It's never really suited my personality or temperament, perhaps. And then I guess I've never really had the skill set to kind of fall back on doing that unless I started from scratch. And then I felt it made sense to kind of use my science degree and see what other options were out there for me, because obviously I love science and I really enjoy learning all the time, and I think that's kind of what brings me back, because obviously while I was running restaurants, it's a very different skill set. You do use your brain, but it's not in the same way, and you
Yeah.
really don't learn lots of things all the time. And that kind of creative learning, even in a scientific way, is what I really miss. So I really want to do that, and then I had to sort of adapt it slightly to hopefully find jobs that were sort of UK based, that I could get funding in. So that's kind of really the logic as to why I went that route.
I can really I remember, and it's completely different because I was only gone for a year, but I remember when I finished my master's, I was like, okay, no, I'm ready to have a job. I don't want to learn anymore. I'm done with this.
Yeah,
Goodbye. And I went and did loads of random jobs and then travelled a little bit. But during that time, then I was like, I've kind of want to learn again.
Yeah.
I missed learning.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like when I was doing my undergrad, I got to the end, I was a bit fed up of it.
Yeah.
I really wasn't giving it my all. I wasn't really too concerned either way. But I think having left it, having come back into it, I was older.
Yeah.
I'd had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Doing other things that didn't, I didn't feel like were a career for me. And yeah, it kind of made
Gave
me
you
focus.
perspective.
It really did.
Yeah.
And I guess I was much more focused and much more driven, and that really kind of helped, at least for me, sort of move forward. And then I did my master's and then worked on this perinatal project. So I worked on that for just over 2.5 years. And then from that, because obviously I had a biology and zoology based degree, there was a PhD looking at stress from a biological perspective that involved animal work. And being super smart, I decided as a zoologist.
You're like, oh, my worlds are colliding. This is perfect.
But yes, let's do animal research.
Can I do something that means I'm going to have to kill the things that I love the most?
Yeah, so that was a bit of a massive oversight, really.
I bring you up quite a lot when people ask me about what animal work, like people that do animal work and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I know this. There's someone in my lab who she did her whole PhD on animals, and every time she killed them, she cried.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I did. I got very attached, but the irony.
What animals?
There were mice.
Mice.
I guess the irony is, is that
animal research warning, blah blah blah. You know the
A
drill.
bit late, but okay.
yeah.
If you don't like it, sorry, bye bye.
Yeah. I mean, there were I guess it's sort of ironic because as a zoologist and because I did lots of behaviour and because I was actually really, really good at animal research. My animals were like probably in the best hands. I because I was so consciously aware of the fact that this was animal research, I really made sure that whatever I was doing, I was so good at it. So the irony is I was really, really good at animal-based research, but yes, it was psychologically very damaging for me as a zoologist. So, lesson learned. No more animal research.
I don't think I'd be able for it.
Yeah. It's important, but
I would like to try it.
Oh, I think it's important.
Yeah.
I just don't think personally I'd be able for it.
I do think personally I would struggle, but I would quite like to see if I would struggle, if that makes sense.
To get a bit more
I think
Yeah.
you never really know until you try it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did know. I was just stupid.
I just think that I can emotionally detach myself quite well, so I think I would end up getting really desensitized really quite quickly.
I think that's why you're good at taking blood.
Maybe, because I don't really feel their pain.
Yeah. I think that's why.
Maybe.
And that's why I'm bad.
It would make sense, because people always say, when I used to want to do medicine, I wanted to be a surgeon, and people are always like, yeah, you'd probably be quite good at it because you're really good at detaching yourself from a situation. My mum always says I'm really cold.
But that's good in situations where you might kill someone by having too much empathy.
Yeah.
So it's actually a good thing that you're
But
cold.
I'd quite like to try it. I mean, I feel like it's too late in my career now to go and decide to do animal research.
It's
But
never too late.
I would like to try it. So yeah, anyway, why don't you tell us about, so what was your project? So you were looking at stress in animals.
Yes. So initially it was to look at different types of antidepressants and inflammation and come up with sort of novel treatments for depression. So that was really how it was sold to me. It's not what I did. But with good reason, I kind of really lucked out. So my project took a massive U-turn and it just became what it was.
But to be fair, maybe not most, but a very good portion of PhD projects never end up being what they initially were meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite nice because at the time my PhD sort of there were 3 of us within a sort of a group looking at very similar things in slightly different sort of contexts. And I think for the other 2 that, it was really important for them to hit those sort of objectives of hitting the brief. And I kind of lucked out where it wasn't that important for me. And that's kind of nice because it gave me a lot of flexibility and creative freedom that my peers did not have. So in that sense, it was really nice. And, doing animal research, yes, psychologically quite damaging for me. But it's a really nice way of learning a lot and looking at a whole system. And that's really sort of a scientist's dream in a way. So from that perspective, it was a wonderful learning tool for me. I learned so much. I did so many different things. So I learned a lot of techniques, and it was really, really useful. So it was just looking at the biology of stress really in the context of animal models.
I like how you were describing parts of it as being creative, because I think what a lot of people, it's not something that people really associate with science ever.
But it is. I feel like because you're designing experiments and thinking of ways to look at something that you can't just look at.
Yeah, but it would never be seen that way.
No.
Like, no one's ever like, oh yes, you need to be creative to be a scientist.
Yeah.
It's different to like artistic creativity, but I think it's still
It's
still creativity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the time in science, most often than not, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to creatively think, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How do we now approach the situation where things aren't working? What can we do? Thinking outside the box. And the best scientists are the ones that can do that. So I think creative thinking is really crucial to be a good scientist.
I do think that some of the people that I like, some of the best scientists I know, they all have a really artsy side, whether that's in music or in crafts. Silent Demelza, for example, is very crafty.
She is.
In what way?
Oh, she makes her own Christmas wrapping paper.
I know. I was trying to joke, but it didn't work. It fell flat.
It's okay.
Let's
we
move
can
on.
We can edit that out.
Let's just move on.
Wait, what was the joke?
Because when you call people crafty, because they're kind of like criminal. It's like
was it?
criminal mastermind Demelza.
To be fair,
Producer on the side.
I bet Demelza could be a
Scientist on the other side.
Anyway, so you were going to look at loads of antidepressants.
yes.
But that didn't happen.
No.
So what did you end up doing?
So I looked at. Essentially, it ended up being a flyaway thing. It was, I guess, when I first started my first show, because there were so many other things going on, I really cared too much about what I was doing, which is great. So it was like, just do that. Why not? And
sounds great.
And it was like, we need to test our controls. Great. But from that kind of spawned this like insane little journey, which was kind of where the creative thing comes in, where I ended up from a control study because we wanted to see if our animals were stressed, our controls were stressed, because we thought that might have been the issue. Turns out they were. And from that then we managed to, I extended the project to look how different types of stress can actually influence sort of behavior and biology in these animals. And I do see this differential effect of different types of chronic stress.
And how do you test if an animal is stressed?
There's lots of ways to do it.
Give us a few.
So in the context of this work, we're looking at mainly behaviour, and we use different types of measures to look at sort of anxiety-like and depressive-like behaviours. And there's lots of behavioural assays that sort of tap into, I guess, a symptom of that.
Yeah.
So you can look at like a symptom of anxiety in that, for example, the open field, mice really avoid open spaces. So it's very anxiety provoking for them, so they tend to be in darker, smaller against the wall. It's called the thickotaxic space.
Pipes and things like that.
Exactly. So
They do love pipes.
I mean, this is how it works.
Yeah.
And a more anxious animal will avoid open spaces more. So you tap into sort of these symptoms that you can then.
I think they're really sad one, but also kind of funny in my head. It's the one in the open swim one where the depressed animals just give up.
Oh,
So sad.
I know it's sad, but in my
Poor
head,
animals.
I know it's sad, but in my head also they're just like, eh.
yeah. But I mean, the forced swim test, which is the one you're alluding to, is we don't really know what it means. We don't actually know if they're giving up. There is a counter argument that they're just conserving their energy because they've learnt that
Do they float?
It doesn't.
They do float.
Okay.
They're naturally buoyant, so they float. So it's a mechanism of coping,
Yeah.
and that doesn't necessarily mean giving up. we can't ask
Yeah.
them, so we
No.
don't really
Do you know
know.
what it's like? It's like, that woman that fell off that cruise ship last year or something, and she was in the middle of the ocean for for over 24 hours or something, and the only way she survived was just completely releasing like all tension in her body and just floating. And and then she would just think about, she would like chant positive shit to herself, but that's how she survived, because she would just float. And they were saying most people would have panicked and they'd get really tense and then they'd sink and then they'd lose loads of energy and then that's how they would die.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So she would she gave up and she survived.
So that's one argument. I mean, that coping, and there's also passive coping, all those ways there are mechanisms that we use sort of for defense. So we don't really know if the animal has given up the will to live. But they're all safe, they're all fine. None of the animals are harmed during this test. It looks worse.
Unless it's done in China. The ethics are a little bit more lax out there.
This is what I'm saying. Anyway, moving on.
I don't know what they do in
Before
China.
this, Andrea was like, okay, so I assume I'm not allowed to swear on this. So
I
I'm
know,
like,
yeah.
it's fine.
Like, it's not that kind of podcast. We try and offend as many people as possible.
And today I've offended the biggest country in the world.
I don't think it's the first time you've offended China on this podcast.
I've definitely talked about China's ethics before.
You have 100% insulted China.
I feel like every animal paper we've had, I've talked about China's ethics.
Potentially.
But I mean, they do have a bit. Their ethical regulations are a bit more relaxed than England.
It's true, but it's not just China. It extends to quite a few countries outside of the EU.
Probably Russia.
There you go.
Without
Oh,
naming any
God.
country specifically, yes.
But I mean, also I was reading all this stuff about how actually I think I mentioned it when I was in paper of the year about DNA editing and stuff, where it's one of the reasons why it's causing a lot of arguments between scientists and stuff, because some of these countries are advancing so much more because they have such much more relaxed ethics, and so they're allowed to do things that we're just not allowed to do. And so they're advancing faster.
But it's ethics.
It is ethics, but
They could be harming things.
they could be, but
I mean, they are.
Yeah. Oh, I read about the CRISPR babies.
yeah.
Apparently they might die younger.
Oh no.
Did you read that? But because apparently the gene he edited was he's basically trying to target a gene that causes HIV or is associated with HIV. But people that have the variant of that gene in like observational studies live like their lifespan is much shorter than the average person.
I mean,
They're not sure why, but like it's probably something to do with susceptibility to
Yeah.
disease. But he's after harming those babies.
well, I mean, also the parents signed their babies away to experimental science, so
Yeah, but did they even know what they were signing their babies away to?
That's a good point. You don't know.
I mean that's true.
And they weren't babies at the time. They would have been eggs, surely, would they?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a risk you take.
Mm.
It's like when you sign up to a big drug trial, there's a risk that you might be paralyzed for life, or I don't know, like
Allegedly.
or die or something.
This is what we learned. Our last guest was a.
She's a lawyer.
She does law, and she said once you say allegedly before
No, I
everything.
said that.
Oh, sorry. Curie
I
said once you say allegedly before
They
everything.
can't sue you.
Nobody can sue you. So we need to start starting all of our sentences with allegedly. Every single sentence we say.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay, so what are the different types of stress that you looked at, and how would they relate to sort of the different types of human stress we have, for example? Straight back in it.
Right. So in the context of animals, it's a bit easier to sort of distinguish between types of stress. In a human context, it's a very sort of mixed exposure, but kind of in the most simplistic way, I looked at physical stresses. So things like chronic pain versus sort of more psychosocial stresses.
How did you hurt them?
They were injected just with saline, and
that
but
causes pain.
it's obviously
The injection.
painful. The injection.
Oh, the injection
process.
itself, not the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's assault.
The injection process is painful.
Okay.
So but it's a simple routine thing that all
Yeah.
animals.
In my head, they had like super dilute, like this bubble of saline traveling around their body.
I mean, to be honest, that's a very good point. You can kill animals like that
See?
if you get bubbles.
That's an
in them.
embolism, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
That's obviously not their goal.
no, I mean, in this case, no, that was not the goal. The goal here was simple injection. So the idea to mimic, I guess, medical treatment, which is
Getting
quite
stabbed.
stressful.
A lot of people don't like injections.
I know.
Exactly.
We take people's blood.
I know.
So yes.
Although apparently I'm excellent. A lot of my participants say I'm the most pain-free blood taking they've ever had.
So modest.
She is.
She really is.
If there's one thing I'm confident at, it's my blood
It
taking
is.
skills.
She's very confident in the blood taking.
Anywho, sorry.
Continue.
So you had pain.
Yep. And then I looked at psychosocial stress, so in this case, social isolation, which is probably the most severe stressor of them, simply because it's permanent, it's continuous, and it had, so of the two, it was probably much more severe.
Yeah. And is that like kind of specific to mice? Because are they animals that like to be together?
They're very social.
They're
aren't they?
incredibly social. So it's kind of it makes sense to apply something that is so easy to do.
Yeah.
At least logistically, and also is quite potent. I mean, we're separating
Although
a very social animal from its group.
And it's definitely still applicable to humans as well, because we're social
Absolutely.
creatures. And there was a study that was out recently that showed that social isolation in humans, I think even if you're someone who likes to be alone, actually has long-term chronic effects on your health.
Yeah. There's lots of research on social isolation, particularly in sort of aging populations as well.
Sad.
And yeah, it's a massive. We know it's a predictor of depression.
You know what I think though? Sometimes when there's things about lonely old people and blah 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 and how they're on their own and it's really depressing for them and all this, and then you immediately go to their kids are such dicks, why aren't they visiting them? But then you sometimes think, what if that old person was an absolute asshole to all his friends and family, or her friends and family, and just no one wants to visit them?
I think you think about this a lot more than a normal person.
Well, I just feel people always sympathise with the old person, but what if they were an arsehole? That old person that you think is really cute walking down the street could have been a rapist.
Okay, so far you've insulted China and old people.
I mean, no, I love old people. I work with them every day. But I'm just saying, everyone sees old people and they're like, oh, they're so cute. Look at them. They're so old. You don't know what they've done.
That is true.
They could be a dickhead.
It is true. It is true.
That's what I'm saying.
Always look on the bright side of life. So back to Andrea.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, moving on from that, very insightful.
Listen, the next time you see an old person alone and you start to think they're cute, you'll think about it and you'll be like, oh, maybe they're a dickhead. That's the title of the show. Maybe they're a dickhead. Anyway.
And then I looked at the combination of both injection and social isolation, and generally what we see is that social isolation has a much more sort of marked impact on animals in terms of biology. So it increases inflammation, increases their stress response, neuroinflammation, and it leads to depressive-like phenotype.
Could it be that maybe because social isolation is more of like a chronic thing, right? Like it's a long thing, whereas with the pain with the injections, it's like really temporary. You're just giving them the injection and they've only got that like second of pain. And then it's gone.
It's possible, but we're also doing it on a chronic basis as well, so they get repeated to it every single day. And we did have animals that had both social isolation and injection, and we found that the combination of both these stresses still wasn't as potent, if you like, compared with just social isolation.
Oh wow!
So there isn't an additive effect, which is quite interesting.
Oh.
So between these three different conditions, we see very different phenotypes that kind of suggests that there's a totally different biological mechanisms by which stress can then impact the body and the mind. And it's sort of just an interesting way of looking at, maybe that's how we should be looking at it in terms of the human experience of stress. But as I said, it's not so easy to do because the human experience of stress is predominantly psychosocial.
Do mice build a tolerance to pain?
They do, yeah. And they definitely habituate to injection. So, they as with everyone, you habituate and you get used to it. But we still see changes in their biology. So irrespective, we're still seeing this change.
Yeah.
I habituated to injection.
What's for
In
all
this
your
one
studies?
arm, yeah.
She said today she's taken part in 12 nutrition studies over the past year and a half.
No, they weren't on nutrition.
I'll find 12 studies in the past year and a half.
Gosh, you're like my injected mice.
Yeah. So
You literally have track marks.
I've no nerves in this vein anymore, or around this vein. Literally, people put needles in, and every time I'm like, maybe I'll feel it this time, and I don't.
You genuinely have track marks. You're like a crack addict.
I haven't. That's a bit of eczema.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
didn't need to worry
Such a
about
tragic
not
human
being
being.
appropriate on this chat
You
show.
can say whatever you want.
I know, sorry, Andrea just called us a chat show.
That's kind of nice.
Isn't it? Yeah. It's like
podcast.
we're professionals.
I know.
Like, we were in a chat
We
show.
are super professional.
Yeah.
It does feel more like a chat show.
I did say it was going to be a chat than an interview.
It's not really very professional.
It's not.
No.
We've only had one
we-
professional episode, and that's because we had a grown-up with us.
Yeah. And even that was a bit of laughs.
Yeah,
Like,
Oh, we have.
he was giving us some insider industry science goss.
that's true.
Yeah.
He dropped some big names.
He actually did it. Apart
No.
from his PhD supervisor.
Yeah, that's just standard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so do we want to ask Andrea what she's doing now?
Yes.
Or is there more?
Yes, because I think you'll find this really interesting, actually.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you
Hit
moved on.
me.
So you got depressed, super depressed from killing all those hundreds of mice, and you were like, "I've had enough of this." You found some really cool science, and you're writing the paper for that at the moment, right? So maybe we
cool.
all present her paper one day.
Ooh.
That'd be good.
Ooh, that would be good.
And then what are you doing now?
So yes, moving away from animals, I have now decided to try something different. So now I'm doing cellular work.
She loves it.
She
She does it.
So
She hates it.
I don't hate it.
How do you like it in comparison to the animals on a scale of 1 to 10?
In terms of
0 being animals.
animal work is incredibly challenging, and by far of all of those, so I've done clinical, animal, and cellular now.
Clinical being humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Animals is by far the most challenging, both in terms of what you're trying to do, in terms of what you need to do, schedule. There's a lot of work. So I'd say of the 3, that one's difficult, and that's setting aside the psychological issues that I had. Cellular work, it's not ideal. I'm not too keen on it, but I think that just I think it's mainly to do with my personality rather than the actual work itself, because the nature of the project that I'm doing, it requires a lot of the very same thing, and I think just running the same thing for me is quite different, given that all my previous work has been everything and lots of different things and very varied. So I think it's more that kind of is
Doesn't
more
suit you.
difficult for me personally. Yeah, I like to do a lot of different things.
Variety is the spice of life. Why did I sound creepy when I said that? Did I?
Yeah. It was weird.
It's true though.
Yeah.
I love spice.
I think that's what it is though, because I think I experienced a similar thing where like if I'm working on my trial for too long without any cell work, I get really sick of it and I start to hate all my participants. Even
You hate all your participants all the time.
I don't. Most of them are really lovely.
That's true.
Yeah. And then
I met one of them today. He was a lovely man. He came back to tell me that you put him in as a female on the Tunisia.
Do you know that made a huge difference to his body fat?
It does. I've done it before.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference because it has the algorithm's different for men and women.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's a body composition machine,
Yeah.
and you have to tell it whether it's man or woman standing on it, and it gives you very different answers.
It made it a 7% difference in their body fat readout, which is crazy. Anyway, so then I get sick of that. So then I come back to cells, and then I get sick of that very quickly because you end up doing the same thing over and over again. But I feel you. Yeah. So what are you looking at?
So we are interested in looking at neurogenesis in the context of cognitive decline and diet.
What was that first word?
Neurogenesis.
What's
So
that?
It's the birth of new neurons, and
Yes.
we're looking at in the context of the hippocampus in
Okay.
humans. And
Which
we
is? What's the hippocampus?
it's part of the brain
Okay, what does it do?
involved in learning and memory.
Oh, did you already say that bit?
No.
No,
Okay.
in
We've
truth, I
said it in
didn't.
different. We've said it in other episodes,
I
but
know,
it's good
but-
to have a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not for me. I know what it is.
I know. it's
My
just-
PhD is based on it. If I didn't know what it was, it'd be very concerning.
You will be concerning. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the only time you've really spot checked me throughout, so
Yeah.
I feel it might be a bit biased towards everything else.
Yeah.
Fair.
But we did call you out on what altruism is.
Yeah, that was way back.
But that was
probably
mainly for interest rather than catch me out.
45 minutes
For
ago.
what the hippocampus.
Well, I didn't know what altruism was.
Neither did I. Well, actually,
You
I
did.
did. I wasn't confident in my knowledge of it.
No, you should be.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
So you're looking at neurogenesis.
Yes. And yeah, looking at the impact of diet and what that has in terms of cognitive decline.
Yeah.
And so we're using a in vitro parabiosis model. So essentially we're looking at how the systemic environment as influenced by serum, so your blood, how that can then impact neurogenesis in the context
We
of
actually
cells.
did the paper in one of the episodes, didn't we?
Parabiosis.
I can't remember. It's one of the early episodes. It's where they fuse the young and the old mouse together. I think Damal's is going to look up which episode it is. If you wanted to go listen back to that, because it's actually a really fascinating paper.
Can I ask a question? So you're looking at diet and cells.
Yeah.
How do you test diet on cells?
Good point. So we're not directly testing the effect of diet. So what we've done within this consortium is a big consortium that has many different work packages within it. And the first work package,
What is a consortium?
it's just
I don't know.
It's sort of like a really big project that is made
Okay.
up with lots of different groups from lots of different universities, and you tend to see them as European consortiums. So it means, like in this case, it's like 6 different research groups over 5 different countries within Europe doing different things.
The episode that talks about the parabiosis paper is episode 3.
Very good. Cool. So you're one of the groups that are working within this consortium.
Exactly.
So
the work that I've done is really kind of coming off of the work that has already been done in work package 1, which is looking at sort of the food metabolome in a patient, in sort of a healthy aging population. And they do this metabolomic study from the serum that I'm then applying to my cells.
Okay.
And we're identifying sort of dietary bioactives or dietary components in the serum of these participants. And we're then linking that back to their cognitive decline over a 12-year period. And that serum we then put onto the cells to see what sort of more direct effect the systemic environment looking at these bioactives in the serum has on neurogenesis.
interesting. So is the project 1 with the patients, did they give them a specific diet, or is it just looking at their usual diet?
Their usual diet.
Okay.
And trying to identify bioactives within that usual diet that might be protective or not in the context.
What's a
of cognitive
bioactive?
decline. It's more of like a chemical component of something to do within the diet. So, for example, caffeine is actually a bioactive, and within that, it can get broken down. So, it's looking at sort of the chemistry makeup of different types of food molecules, if you like, and then from that, we can then link that back to from food diaries and all sorts of data that we've collected from these participants across this longitudinal study. We can then link back these bioactives that are going to be correlated with certain food groups, for example.
That's super interesting.
And so a very interesting finding has come out from this consortium, which was published recently.
Ooh.
Which I think you will really enjoy this.
Ooh.
Who do you
Is
want
it
to
about
tell?
coffee?
It is.
Oh, hooray. Go on.
So
I've recently upped my intake. Please tell me it's a good thing.
It is.
Great.
So in the context of this particular study, we're finding that coffee, cocoa, and red wine, and some sort of fish bioactives are actually protective against cognitive decline.
Great. I eat loads of those, apart from red wine. I'm more of a white wine gal.
Wait, don't get too excited.
Okay.
And then we're all, but obviously with anything like you've protective, we've also got some things that are not. So things like orange juice, and caffeine are not protective. So they are not good for cognitive decline.
So explain, you said coffee is good, but caffeine is not.
Yes.
So I need to drink decaf.
No, not necessarily.
Right.
So in this study, it's coffee. And remember, coffee is so complicated because it's made up of so many different bioactives, of which caffeine is just one part of that. So essentially, we're saying that it's coffee as a whole, and whatever goes into that is conferring some sort of protective effect. But caffeine in isolation, and that can come from things like fizzy drinks, energy drinks, is not so good.
Yeah.
And it could be linked to so many other things. So caffeine's a bit easier for us to understand because there are fewer bioactives than coffee, for example.
Yeah.
But if you're having lots of energy drinks, for example, your diet might not be so good.
Yeah.
So that could, be having some
reason.
confounding effect.
Yeah.
It's
not necessarily direct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So caffeine itself, not so good, but coffee is made up of so many other important things that are not just caffeine.
So this is, whether it's caffeine or not, this is another reason why my brother should not be taking pre-workout.
Yeah,
he's going to get cognitive decline.
he might.
And he's only 17.
I mean, I don't think you should be taking pre-workout at 17.
No. I told him this. Anyway. Ammunition. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You were going to say something.
Yeah, you made me forget.
I know.
Oh, do you know what I was wondering though? Because when I was thinking about this whole coffee caffeine link, and often when you tell this to people, they sort of turn their nose up at the fact that they'd have to drink decaf coffee. But I wonder if you blinded them and one day you gave them decaf coffee and one day you gave them normal coffee, do you think they'd actually notice that they were given decaf coffee? Because there must be a massive placebo effect with caffeine, right? Like if they think they're drinking caffeinated coffee. Because they don't taste different.
No, but I get really bad headaches.
They taste different. No, I've never actually had decaf coffee. So
No, neither have I.
They do taste different, but I mean, I obviously everybody has a different range
Yeah.
of taste, so
Yeah.
maybe for some people they might not notice.
I'll have a decaf someday and I'll let you know.
But you'll know you've had a decaf. You should just over the next few weeks, just let me buy you your coffees.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
No, but with your money.
No, that's not how it works, I'm
With
afraid.
your money, I'll get you your coffees.
Fine.
Oh my god, we should do this. This is actually quite a cool little experiment.
Okay,
I'll
fine.
get you your coffees, and some days they'll be decaf, and some days they won't.
Okay.
And then at the end of each day, I'm going to ask you about your energy levels.
Right.
And then I'm going to keep a record of it, and then
Right.
we'll have a look.
Okay.
This is actually quite a good experiment.
Okay.
And then we'll report back to the podcast.
Interesting.
Yeah?
Okay.
Cool. How exciting!
Can't wait. Curie's going to buy me all my coffee.
No! I'll buy you one. You can use some of my King's Move coffees. How about that?
Perfect. That works well.
I have loads of points.
Okay, great.
So you've obviously had like a really varied, scientific career. So you've had, you've dabbled in human work, cell work, and animal work within psychiatry and like pregnant people and diet and neurogenesis and stress and depression and all this. What has been your one favourite discipline, two favourite topic, and if you could merge one of the disciplines and one of the topics to make your perfect thing, what would it be?
I'm not sure I could merge them, but definitely favourite topic is zoology. I still stand by that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now I guess it's more of a hobby and a passion. A weird
Do you
hobby.
think you would go back to zoology?
I don't think it makes sense because much like any field in research, you have to start from the bottom, and I'm now getting to a point that I can't just keep starting again. So I think ultimately no, but that's okay because you get sort of disheartened by research regardless of the context, much like any job. So I think neuroscience is probably the field that I will stay with. My favourite of all the research projects I've been involved with in terms of the actual daily work was definitely working in perinatal psychiatry. I felt that I'm in some small ways you see sort of the long-term effects that you can have even just with one person, so making that difference to just one person by talking to them was, I think, really where I want to go. So I think in the future, for me personally, it would be trying to combine some of the more biological aspects of the research that I've done and looking at it in a much more clinical setting.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite points of my PhD so far has been when one of my participants emailed me months after he'd finished, and he was like, "Oh, just to let you know, I lost even more weight after I finished your trial, and it's made such a difference, and I'm so happy.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And I've really managed to keep it off, and blah." And he was like, "Oh, just minutes." Okay, sorry guys, my laptop died.
So what were you saying?
Can you hear us again? Yeah. Okay.
Will we go back or no?
Nah.
Okay.
I think we're done now.
Yeah. Okay, my laptop's back. Just on to say goodbye. Talk to you later.
No, I did have a question. Oh no, because that's why we're leading on to this. Okay, so
Right.
you said your favourite discipline was humans, your favourite field was the perinatal.
Yeah.
So
In the context of neuroscience.
so if I guess if you could merge your two ideal things, it would be humans and the
Yes.
psychiatry bit.
Yeah.
You would make an excellent psychiatrist, which you know.
So
Andrea has
Curie does always tell me how much sense you talk.
like
She's
She's like,
Thinks I
thank
have a-
God for Andrea.
she says I have a demon.
you do have a demon.
Yeah.
Like so
It's
basically
a compliment apparently.
yeah. So well, not a compliment, but like
That's
there's
a
a-
word.
You told me it was a
No,
compliment.
but it's not necessarily a bad thing. So in Korea, whenever someone has like a slight sixth sense, you say that they have a demon attached to them,
Right.
or a ghost, for example.
Okay.
So like for example, my sister tends to have quite prophetic dreams.
Right.
And she was always told that she has
A demon.
a spirit of an old lady attached to her.
See, a spirit makes more sense than a demon.
I agree.
A demon sounds like you need to be exorcised.
I agree.
Yeah, I know. Well, just the Korean word
Yeah, the
directly
translation,
translates to
yeah.
demon. But yeah, it's
Fair.
it's more of a spirit, and I think you do have a spirit attached to you. You're very intuitive when it comes to people's emotions and character.
It's a good skill. Try.
I mean, so maybe I'm not that intuitive.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Welcome.
That was super interesting.
Yeah.
Love hearing about people's journeys.
I hope it wasn't as awful as you thought it was going to be.
No, I think because you guys were a lot more inappropriate than I thought you'd be, so that's
Well, I don't know what
Did you not explain to her what we do here?
Well, clearly she's never listened to a single episode.
Okay, well that's okay. Most of our guests haven't.
Light demands, no, I haven't.
I mean, it's a podcast done by me. I don't know what you were expecting.
This is true. You're right.
Fair.
Me and professionalism
Fair point.
don't collide very often. It's only when I'm with my participants.
Or when you're like at a conference.
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
You're good at
I
conferences.
mean, even in front of Sandrine, sometimes I forget who I'm talking to, and I say things I probably shouldn't.
A lot of the time.
Andrea's like, I have witnessed this firsthand.
And
But it's
been
never
amazing.
It's never like bad stuff. I'll just make a joke like, "Oh, we should take a shot every time we do this," and then Sandrine.
Yeah,
She
that
probably
was
loves
recent,
it.
Yeah.
And then she'll. Well, I don't know because sometimes she thinks I'm not joking.
Because sometimes you're not joking.
Yeah.
And
No,
you
most
suggested
of the
that we do tequila shots at our barbecue. I was like,
Not at
no,
her
I won't do
barbecue.
it. Where was it then? At
For,
work?
for the science slam.
Oh yeah, that was it.
I mean,
That
it's
you
called a
have
science
to-
slam. It kind of sounds like it should involve tequila, if you ask
Like
me.
tequila slammers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But with science, doesn't quite go.
Well, you could. How do you science it up? You do the shot.
Light
out,
them on fire.
You do the shot out of a beaker, and you squeeze the lime with forceps, and you lick the salt. Oh, you can't lick the salt because you should have put things in the lab in your mouth.
But you're drinking out of a beaker. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And using forceps to hold the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all fine.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did.
Good. I'm glad.
She paused.
She did. She paused. It was a long pause. It's fine. We'll get over it in about a year.
Okay.
It's fine.
I thought I was going to say more, but I couldn't think of anything. So that was what the pause was for. But
That's how much she loved it. She can't. She's speechless.
She's speechless.
Yeah.
Speechless.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shall we wrap it up? We haven't mentioned any sponsors at all, which is very unlike us.
Yeah. Oh, I'm repotting Gabby soon. I just need to buy a pot. So Patch, if you could send me a pot as your first sign of sponsorship, that'd be wonderful.
Because your pots are expensive.
But they're so beautiful.
They're really nice. I repotted Kevin, and he's doing great.
Did you do it in a patch pot?
No.
Did you do it in a patch pot?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. My God, it's so German. Why should I do that?
Yes.
So yeah.
And I'm
Anyway.
glad that we've managed to offend the Germans, the Russians, and the
All the superpowers.
You didn't hit the Americans. Yeah.
I mean,
Fuck Trump. We've hit them all. We can go now.
Job done.
and we had Tesco cookies tonight. They were.
They were good. I would say I would still say I think Sainsbury's are better.
I was gonna say, admittedly, the Sainsbury's ones are better. So Tesco, don't worry about sponsoring us.
Sainsbury's will take you.
Great. Yeah.
I also hear Tesco's not doing very well these days.
Really?
Yeah.
Shocking.
No, because I think all the major supermarkets aren't doing very well.
'Cause
Because Aldi and Lidl and stuff are doing so well.
Oh yeah, I shop in Lidl.
Actually, seriously, this is what's following me. I'm just like, I don't mean to be offended or honoured that you asked me to come on this show. We're now doing it.
We're now talking about where we
Aston Morrison's and Sainsbury's. I'm like, we really are scraping at the bottom of the barrel today.
No, we loved having you on.
Yeah.
I mean, your
Yeah.
salmon comment was great. That's good. I
Okay,
am
listen.
committing that to
Highlight of
memory
the
for
episode.
next time.
I thought I was being clever. And I thought I figured something out, but maybe not.
Okay.
Bye!
Bye.
Oh, wait. You can
Oh.
follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Lay It Out Podcast.
You can email us on layidoutpodcast@gmail.com.
I also have a really good idea for a book. So, maybe we should start a Patreon. Oh, guys, I subscribed to my first ever Patreon yesterday. I'm actually giving someone money. I'm that much of a fan. Anyway, maybe we should start one for all our many fans out there.
Yes, for the fans.
So I can make my book. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye. Bye-bye.
What does the little red thing for mute mean?